I married him quickly. We met exactly 100 days ago. A whirlwind romance, passionate and intoxicating. Gabe swept me off my feet with candlelit dinners, spontaneous weekend getaways, and whispered promises under the moonlight. Then, one evening, he got down on one knee. I should have been hesitant. We barely knew each other. But when he slipped the ring onto my finger, I said yes without a second thought. Now, here we were, floating in the middle of the ocean on a luxurious private yacht, basking in the glow of our honeymoon. Just the two of us. Gabe poured another glass of wine, his fingers grazing mine as he handed it over.
To us.
I smiled and clinked my glass against his. We talked for hours, about dreams, childhood memories, random stories about life. His laughter was warm, his gaze full of love. Then, as the conversation lulled, he leaned in.
You know, we should talk about finances.
He said casually. I tilted my head. Why?
Well, we're married now. We should be open about everything, right?
That made sense. Couples should share everything. Bank accounts, properties, even insurance policies. Still, something about the way he asked made my stomach twist. He reached for my hand.
Do you have life insurance?
I hesitated, just for a second. Then, I answered. Of course I did. I had a sizable policy from my job. A good one. Gabe pulled out his phone and looked up insurance details. His thumb traced slow, deliberate circles on my wrist.
That's a wise choice. I'd hate for anything to happen to you.
I laughed nervously, brushing it off. Love is trust, right? That night, I expected our first night together as husband and wife to be passionate. But after dinner, after another glass of wine, my eyelids grew unbearably heavy. I barely remembered climbing into bed. The gentle rocking of the yacht should have lulled me into a peaceful sleep. But instead, I felt like I was sinking. I could hear Gabe's voice in my ear.
Sleep tight, my love.
Then, nothing. I woke up groggy. My limbs were heavy, my head foggy, as if I had run a marathon in my sleep. Gabe was already up, preparing the diving gear.
Good morning, sleepyhead. Are you ready for our first dive together?
I hesitated. I had never gone diving before. The thought of being deep underwater, where the surface was just a distant shimmer, made me uneasy. But Gabe was so excited, and I wanted to be the wife he deserved. I guess, I said, forcing a smile. He beamed.
Don't worry, I'll be right behind you.
There was no diving instructor, no one else on board, just us. Don't we have a diving instructor?
I wanted this moment to be just ours.
That should have made me feel special. Instead, I felt a strange, creeping sense of unease. But love is trust, right? As I turned away to change into my wetsuit, I caught a glimpse of Gabe out of the corner of my eye. He was messing with the oxygen tank. I froze. What are you doing? He glanced up, his expression smooth, calm.
Your tank had a leak. I'm switching it out for another one.
I nodded slowly. It made sense, didn't it? Maybe I was just overthinking things. The moment we plunged into the water, all my fears melted away. The world below was breathtaking. Schools of fish swirled around us in shimmering clouds. Coral reefs stretched endlessly, swaying gently with the current. It was like an alien world, untouched, silent, beautiful. Gabe swam beside me, watching me with a smile behind his mask. For the first time since waking up, I felt safe. Then, without warning, he reached behind me and unfastened my oxygen tank. It took me a second to realize what had happened. One moment, I was breathing. The next, nothing. Panic surged through me. I clawed at my regulator, desperate to shove it back into my mouth. But my fingers fumbled. My lungs screamed for air. Gabe just hovered there, watching me. Waiting. He wasn't going to save me. He had been planning this. I lunged at him, grabbing his wetsuit, my nails digging into his arms, but he twisted away faster than me, stronger. I kicked, trying to chase him, but my body was slowing down. Oxygen deprivation. Black spots bloomed in my vision. My arms felt like lead. Gabe was swimming backward, watching me struggle. His eyes held no love, no regret, just cold detachment. Then he turned and swam away, fading light. I reached out for him, my fingers grazing the water where he had been. I kicked, I thrashed, I tried to move toward the surface, but I was sinking. I should have waited longer. I should have taken my time, should have questioned the man who loved me too fast, too intensely. But love makes us blind. The sunlight above me grew fainter, more distant. Gabe was gone, and I was alone.
You're great, but I don't date women over 25. Sorry, sweetie.
When the news broke about Rio's breakup with his 25-year-old model girlfriend, I didn't think much of it. It was just another headline in the endless cycle of celebrity drama. But now here I am, sitting beside him at a bar that smells like expensive perfume and ambition, his eyes locked on me like I'm the most fascinating thing he's seen all night.
Oh, so tomorrow's your birthday?
He says, his voice smooth as silk.
25, huh? Tonight's your last night at 24. Let's make it unforgettable.
I'm not the kind of girl who belongs in places like this. My friend dragged me along as a +1, and I've spent most of the evening feeling out of place in my borrowed dress. But here's Rio, an S-tier celebrity, his smile dazzling under the lowlights, choosing me. When he invites me back to his suite, I don't even hesitate. The room is breathtaking, a palace of glass and gold perched high above the city. Rio pours us champagne, and the tension between us crackles. Everything about him seems surreal. His perfect hair, his gleaming smile, the way he moves like he owns not just the room, but the world. That's when I noticed it. A strand of his hair fell loose as he ran a hand through it. But instead of landing softly on his shoulder or the floor, the strand shimmered, then hardened into pure gold. My breath caught.
You're staring,
He teased, leaning closer.
It's a little gift of mine.
Your hair,
Pure gold.
he interrupted, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I laughed nervously, but the strangeness only deepened. He reached for a nail clipper, trimming one of his manicured nails. The clipping hit the glass coffee table with a metallic plink. A sliver of solid gold. I froze.
Oh, that's not all.
He said, grinning like a magician about to reveal his next trick. He tilted his head back and casually flicked his nose. He placed the shimmering pearl into my hand. Is this real? I stammered, barely able to process what I was seeing.
Real as you and me.
He replied, leaning back into the plush sofa.
And if you make me happy tonight, all of it is yours. Every strand, every clipping, every pearl.
As the night went on, gold and jewels seemed to pour out of him. Quite literally. Every touch, every kiss, every moment sent shimmering treasures scattering across the room. By midnight, the floor was littered with riches. And then it happened. Rio stumbled, catching himself on the edge of a table. A sharp gasp escaped his lips as a golden gash split across his palm. But instead of blood, molten gold began to drip from the wound, pooling onto the carpet. Oh my God, I breathed, rushing to him.
It's fine. Just grab a cloth or something.
I pressed a towel to his hand, my heart pounding. The golden liquid was warm, almost alive as it seeped through the fabric. His breathing was shallow, his skin pale, but still he smiled at me. For a brief moment, I felt a strange pang of sympathy. By the time we collapse into bed, I fall asleep in his arms, the strange warmth of his body lulling me into a dreamless void. Morning came too soon. I woke to the soft hum of city traffic and the blinding sunlight streaming through the massive windows. Rio was already dressed, standing at the edge of the bed.
Happy birthday.
He said, his smile as dazzling as ever. Thank you. But his next words turned that warmth to ice.
This has been fun, but I don't date women over 25.
What?
You're great, really, but I have standards.
Anger bubbled in my chest. After everything, after last night, this was how he saw me. Just another disposable toy.
You can take all the gold and pearls.
He added, gesturing to the glittering mess on the floor.
Consider it your parting gift.
I stared at him, my mind racing. He was so smug, so sure of himself, so untouchable. My eyes landed on the corkscrew on the bedside table. Without thinking, I grabbed it and lunged. The moment the corkscrew pierced his stomach, his eyes widened in shock. But instead of blood, a torrent of gold and jewels erupted from the wound, spraying across the room like a macabre fountain. He collapsed to the floor, gasping, as the treasures kept pouring out. He falls to his knees, his hands grasping at the wound as more and more spills out. His skin cracks like porcelain, and molten gold begins to seep through the fissures.
You fool.
He gasps, his voice gurgling. I stumble back, horrified. The golden river slows, then stops, leaving Rio motionless on the floor. For one fleeting moment, I wonder if I should take the gold and run. But then the gold began to change. The shimmering strands darkened, the pearls cracking and oozing. The smell hit me first, metallic and sharp, like rust and decay. No, I whispered, stumbling back. The gold liquefied, pooling into dark red puddles. The pearls dissolved into chunks of raw, congealed flesh. The room reeked of blood, hot, sticky and overwhelming. I turned to Rio, but he was no longer the godlike figure from last night. His body was collapsing in on itself, his golden sheen fading into a grotesque mess of sinew and viscera. My hands and clothes were stained with his blood. Real blood now, not gold. The riches he had promised me had turned into a nightmare.
Lucid dreaming had always fascinated me. The idea of controlling my dreams, bending reality to my will, was exhilarating. I spent hours reading guides, watching videos, and joining forums to learn the craft. One recurring warning, however, intrigued me the most. Never look into a mirror while lucid dreaming. It was a rule repeated in countless posts. People claimed mirrors in dreams were portals to places your mind couldn't comprehend. But rules were meant to be broken, weren't they? That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I whispered to myself, "This is a dream. I am in control." When I opened my eyes, I stood in a crumbling mansion. The air was heavy, tinged with damp rot. The walls groaned as if alive. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I had a mission. I wandered through the dim corridors until I found it. An ornate mirror framed in black and silver, taller than me, standing against the far wall. My reflection was hazy, shifting like water. I hesitated, but curiosity pushed me forward. As I peered closer, the surface of the mirror rippled. My reflection vanished, replaced by something else. A scene unfolded before me, fiery chaos. Rivers of molten lava flowed through a barren landscape. Faceless figures writhed in agony, their silent screams haunting. The heat felt real, blistering my skin. Suddenly, the mirror pulled at me, its surface like a vortex. My feet slid forward. Panic surged, and I yanked myself back, knocking the mirror over. It shattered into countless shards, each reflecting fragments of the hellish scene. When I turned around, she was there. Her skin was pallid, almost translucent, veins spidering beneath. Her eyes were empty voids pulling at my very soul. "Leave!" she hissed, her voice echoing in the empty house.
Leave now, or regret it forever.
Before I could react, the dream collapsed into darkness. I woke up gasping, my heart pounding. The room was familiar, comforting, but the dream's intensity lingered. It was just a dream, I muttered, trying to convince myself. My phone buzzed. A last-minute work trip. I had to leave immediately. The journey was uneventful until the taxi pulled up at my lodging for the night. A small, secluded inn. My stomach twisted as I stepped out. The inn was the house from my dream. Every detail matched. The cracked paint, the warped wooden door, even the oppressive air. An older woman greeted me with a kind smile.
Welcome, dear. Let me take your bags. You must be tired.
Her face was eerily familiar. The same hollow eyes, the same pale complexion. Thank you, I mumbled, my voice shaking. Inside, the house was even worse. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally and the silence was deafening. The woman led me to the living room and gestured toward the sofa.
Rest well,
she said, her smile lingering a moment too long. That's when I saw it. The mirror. It stood in the corner, identical to the one from my dream. My knees went weak. I turned to her, my voice trembling. Where did you get that mirror? She tilted her head, her smile never wavering.
Oh, it's always been here.
She left, and I stared at the mirror, paralyzed. It was just a coincidence, I told myself, though deep down, I knew better. Minutes later, she returned with a tray.
Tea?
She offered. I took the cup, my hands shaking. She watched me, waiting. Something about her gaze felt wrong, predatory. Her smile stretched a little too wide, her eyes lingering on me too long. My fingers trembled as I held the cup, every instinct screaming at me not to drink. With a sharp motion, I flung the tea at her. The cup shattered and she recoiled, her face twisting with something unhumanly sinister. Without waiting to see what would happen next, I bolted. Outside, I flagged down a passing taxi, my hands shaking as I climbed in. As the car sped away, relief began to replace my fear. I had escaped, or so I thought. The road was empty, shrouded in a thick fog that seemed to swallow everything beyond a few meters. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the middle of the road. The driver swerved to avoid her, but the car skidded and crashed into a tree. My head slammed against the window, and the world blurred. When I came to, the driver was gone. I was alone in the wreck, surrounded by suffocating silence. Then she appeared, the pale woman, standing just beyond the shattered windshield.
Death is inevitable,
she whispered, her voice echoing in the stillness. I scrambled out of the car, running blindly through the fog until I stumbled upon a small, unlit house. The door was unlocked, and I threw myself inside, slamming it shut behind me. The house was eerily quiet, each room draped in shadows. As I opened a door at the end of the hallway, I froze. There I was, lying on a bed, my chest rising and falling as though in sleep. Is this still a dream? Or am I... Before I could finish, the pale woman materialized behind me.
You've already crossed the line. There's no going back.
I turned to her, my mind racing. If this was a dream, I could wake myself up. I lunged toward my sleeping form, desperate to return to my body. But she was faster. Her icy grip closed around my wrist, dragging me backward.
No one escapes their fate,
she hissed. I struggled, kicking and screaming, but her strength was inhuman. Her stomach stretched impossibly wide, revealing an abyss of darkness. With one final pull, she swallowed me whole.